Bayern take on Inter Milan. It's probably the tie that most people are probably going to go, I might skip that one. And I don't know why that is, because Bayern have been very good in the Bundesliga this season. They're 6 points clear. They've got another Ballon d'Or contender. We're going to get to that in a second. And Inter Milan, for the longest time, me and you have both said that they're the dark horses. Yeah. So why are people not going to be tuning into this one, Kweku?
It's not sexy. Hasn't got that je ne sais quoi. Hasn't got that thrill to it. There's narratives galore in so many of the other games. And there are narratives in this game. Obviously, Inter Milan have been knocking on the door for the last couple of years. And this might be the year they finally break through. Bayern Munich, I suppose the narrative around them for us is Harry Kane, and can he finally win a big trophy? We expect him to win the Bundesliga, but if he wins the Champions League, that takes him on to a different level. But yeah, I want to talk about Inter Milan because they're a team that I've liked for the last few years. And if you look at the spine of the team, look at how good Bastoni is, look at how good Barella is, and Lautaro Martinez. I know that he's had some flops on the biggest of stages, but he is such a good forward. I'm not too sure about Thuram. I think that when it gets to the big occasions, he also finds a way to mess it up. But this is an Inter team that have got probably I wouldn't say the best coach team, but I really, really like what Inzaghi does in terms of setting them up. And you were listening firsthand when it came to the Etihad. Yeah. It wasn't the most thrilling game, but Inter looked good and it looked solid, and they give the best teams in the world good games. So I feel like with the experience that they had of getting to the Champions League final and losing it a couple of years ago, this might be the year that they use that experience and it fuels them in the later rounds of the competition, because I do think they beat Bayern in this round.
I think one thing Inter do really well, as you would have experienced in that Champions League final also, is they manage to stifle teams and then they wait for their moments, because they've got these sort of like moments players. The issue they've had, I think, over the previous few years is that the moments guys are Lautaro Martinez, and he's not that reliable in those like high clutch moments. And then, as you said, Thuram, who's also just got there. So they're kind of waiting for Barella to do something or like something to happen from a corner. Weirdly, I was looking at this, I was thinking, who's the favourites? Who would you say are like the team that you think, that hang my hat on them?
I mean, you talk about moments, guys. Well, Bayern Munich have got the best moment guy. The guy who scores all the goals all the time is Harry Kane. I mean, 33 goals, 12 assists already this season. His stats throughout his career have been absolutely ridiculous. And I actually favour Bayern Munich for this time. I think you mentioned it there. You said, we expect them to win the Bundesliga. And that's fine. Yeah, they are the biggest team, and they did win it 10 years before Leverkusen won it. But compared to how they were last season, Vincent Kompany has come in, bit of a laughable appointment to some. He obviously got Burnley relegated, and then he got one of the top jobs in European football. But he's got them playing genuinely very, very exciting football. And we talked about it in the other video where you mentioned the 2018 Man City team of Sane, Aguero, Sterling. But this Sane, Harry Kane, Elise front three is absolutely electric. I mean, Elise's step up is not a huge surprise. He was unbelievable last year, and I think you could always tell his quality. He's been absolutely fantastic for Brighton. Sane, a bit temperamental, but you know the quality he has, you know the pace he has. And then Harry Kane is just inevitable with scoring goals. So I favour Bayern here because I think that they have the better players. But like you say, it's not going to be easy because Inter do have that ability to just stifle the life out of any game.
I think one thing for me with Bayern is that they've been tactically naive a few too many times for this season. And like Kweku said, Inzaghi's probably the best coach in one-off games, I think, from what I've seen over the last 2 or 3 years. So in a lot of ways, this is like Kompany's potentially his inauguration to Champions League football versus like the veteran who knows how to do it. But then Kompany does have the game breaker Harry Kane. Yeah. Let's have that Harry Kane Ballon d'Or conversation. Because I don't know, I'm not sure people want to hear it, but if he wins the Champions League, wins the Bundesliga, with the stats that he's putting up, it becomes a little bit undeniable.
It does become undeniable, and he's not the sexiest name when it comes to Ballon d'Or winners, but he is undeniable. Harry Kane is a bona fide goal scorer, and when he went to Bayern Munich, I think people were a little bit surprised, but he's proved that no matter what league it is, no matter what players you have around him, Harry Kane will score goals. We've seen Spurs without Harry Kane and what they look like. He's a player that deserves his flowers, and the reason why he doesn't get it, I think, is justifiable because he hasn't won trophies. Football's not an individual sport, but I do think trophies are a reflection of good players. I don't think there's any top player who's retired and not won a trophy, and so that is very important for not only his career but his bid to win the Ballon d'Or this season. But I very much compare the quarterfinals onwards of the Champions League, like the playoffs in the NBA. This is where it starts. This is where the narrative starts. This is where you can make your Ballon d'Or case. This is where, for example, Vinicius started making this case last season. I know he didn't win it, but there's no international tournament this summer, which is hugely important. The Club World Cup won't have an effect, in my opinion. And so if Harry Kane can make a big statement in the latter rounds, scores goals in the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and Bayern win it. He scores a goal in the final, which he's never done before. Never scored a goal in the final, which is again a reason why people don't love Harry Kane. I think he's got a huge chance of winning the Ballon d'Or.
I think it's a really interesting conversation because, as you mentioned, the fact that there's no international tournament means that the Champions League is going to have a huge weighting on who wins it. And I was just thinking to myself when you were speaking, and I might be wrong, Rodri is Spanish. He's a Spanish national. Before that, who was the player who didn't play for a Spanish team, Real Madrid or Barcelona, who won the Ballon d'Or? There can't have been many over the last sort of 15, 20 years. And the fact that Robert Lewandowski, did he win it?
No,
he didn't win it. The fact that he didn't win
should
it,
have won it.
in the calendar year where he scored a ludicrous amount of goals.
It was lockdown year, so I didn't do Ballon d'Or that year. So
But
he should've won it.
everyone
That's
knows
when
he
he
was
should have
robbed.
won it,
He was
yeah.
robbed.
Exactly. And I just think that as annoying as it is for football fans who just want to see the best player win that award is not about the best player. It's about many other things. It's about leadership. It's about fair play. It's about image more than anything else. And I just think Harry Kane doesn't have that.
I've got your answer for you, by the way. It's Messi, and he won it when he was playing for PSG. But again, he won the World Cup, so it doesn't really.
So the question I would have is, you just said best player there, and I think that's where it's quite interesting. Is Harry Kane, in your mind, in all our minds, the best player in the world?
He doesn't excite me. He just doesn't excite me, and he never has. I like watching him. I like watching him score goals for England. I always have. You know, I've got a little soft spot for Spurs. I like watching him score goals for Spurs. Now I've got a soft spot for Bayern because of Vincent Kompany, and I still like watching him score goals. But he doesn't excite me. He doesn't bring me off my feet. When I'm looking at the highlights and it says Harry Kane's hat-trick, I know it's going to be from a combined 10 yards unless he scored a penalty. And I think that, for me, weighs heavy in the Ballon d'Or conversation.
I think we have to be consistent though, and I'll take it back to some analysis that Daniel Sturridge did on TV, and he said that players 10 years ago who wanted to be strikers now want to be wide men, and that's because they get more of the ball and they also get more of the acclaim. And so it's difficult for a player like Erling Haaland, for example, broke the Premier League records in his first season, won the treble, didn't win the Ballon d'Or. Unfortunate because Messi won the World Cup in that year, and it's a procession. When Messi has a good year, he's always going to win the Ballon d'Or. But for strikers, it's difficult. But they did give the Ballon d'Or to Benzema when he led Real Madrid to a Champions League, playing up front, scoring the goals. And so if Harry Kane replicates that and does the same thing for a Bayern Munich team that people don't fancy to win this competition, I think it would be unfair for us to rule him out of it because he doesn't excite us.
Yeah, for me, he's not the best player.
Was Benzema the best player in the world when he won the Ballon d'Or? Was
in
Modric the best player in the world?
In that Champions League run, Benzema was the best player in the Champions League for sure.
And if Bayern win the Champions League...
But Rafinha's been the best player in the Champions League, and I wouldn't have Kane... Kane wouldn't be my top three.
So there's no amount of goals that Harry Kane can score between now and the final if Bayern Munich were to win it.
If he scores in every single knockout game, then he's undeniable. But for me, for Kane to win it, to be the best player in the world, he has to be undeniable. Whereas I think, and it probably is the way we see the game now. Like Haaland has to score a ridiculous amount of goals for me to go, he's undeniably the best, because I prefer Lamine Yamal, I prefer Rafinha. And when Rodri won the Ballon d'Or, I preferred Rodri. So I think it depends what you.
I guess to be fair,
best.
the Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or actually maybe is a bit of a moment of change. To be fair, it kind of offsets it now because everyone thought that the Brazilian flair man was going to win the Ballon d'Or.
But he also won the Euros.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though he wasn't a part of the team for 2 or 3 of the games, and Zubimendi came and did his job perfectly fine. But that's a conversation for another day. And that's me winding Kim up. Let's get score predictions for this one. Kim, I'll start with you.
I favour Bayern going through, but I think this is going to be a 0-0. Like you said, I think this is the one where I'm probably going to skip over.
I'm going for 1-1 in this one.
I'm going to go Bayern 2-1. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be that exciting because it's Inzaghi and it's Inter, but I think Kane will have a say.